lot of the times people confuse leadership with management. And these are two vastly different topics. And if you are really aspiring to be a leader, you've got to ask yourself, do I have the heart to serve people? Do I have what it takes to put people first and to cater to their needs?
Welcome to Forward with NACCE, Inspiring Entrepreneurial Action, a podcast that shares the stories of everyday entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial leaders, and the communities that support us. We hope that this diverse collection of stories brings you inspiration, inspires you to take action, and ignites entrepreneurship in your community as we make our way forward together.
Welcome to this episode of Forward with NACCE. This month is April, where we're celebrating community colleges all month long, and we're bringing special guests to you that have interesting stories to tell and interesting connections to community colleges. I'm very happy to welcome Ranjith Abraham today, and we'll get into how we met one another, but I want to welcome you to our program. And maybe you could begin with just sharing a little bit about yourself. What were some early experiences that brought you into doing the work that you're doing today?
To begin with, Becky, thank you for having me on this amazing podcast. I'm very grateful, really looking forward to this opportunity for us to have a wonderful discussion that perhaps will touch a heart or two. To answer that question, there are, of course, a lot of moving parts here. I am a person who really believes in living a purposeful life. And at times, that purpose comes from doing different things. And for me, it is to be able to do something that is for the greater good, something that will benefit another person. I'm kind of utilizing the gifts that are within me to be able to do that. One is music, and the other one is to be able to talk to people who have a message that will inspire an audience. And, I'm very grateful that we had the opportunity to do that a few weeks ago. So those are some of the things that I really value and treasure, if I may.
That's wonderful. And I think, Purpose-Driven Life, I read that book many years ago, and it really resonated with me. If you really want to build impactful things on a small or a large scale, you start with connecting to other people. And you and I chatted a little bit earlier about really the importance of a network. And I had heard somebody say one time, your net worth is your network. And you and I actually got connected through our networks that sort of overlapped. An entrepreneur and somebody we both admire and learn from, Sam Thayanaigam, who is in New Jersey, started a successful business called Parts Life, and like you, gives back all the time. And so I would love it if you just share with us a little bit about, since it is Community College Month, maybe some of the impact that you've seen from your extended family that has been either connected or helped through community colleges.
Sure. Sam T, what can I say? He's such an incredible man. I consider him a mentor. He's been a great source of support, even towards Leader Reveal. And the fact that we are even speaking to each other today is because of him. So very grateful for him to be able to connect the dots and bring people together. Talking about community college, one thing that comes to my mind is a lot of immigrants find so much value in community colleges. And the reason for that is because when you are new to this country, a lot of things around can be overwhelming or intimidating. And one of those things is being in a big university. And in such scenarios, I've seen, people from my extended family and friends who have joined a community college and found their comfort zone. And once they get used to the dynamics, they are able to more clearly think, okay, do I need to be in a university? And even if they want to be in a university, they do have a strong foundation that they have gained from the community college, which then benefits them to perform and do better when they are in a university. So from that aspect, I think community colleges are a huge blessing. And thank you to you and to NACCE for all that you guys are doing.
Well, I appreciate that. And the way it works is we have people who are like Sam are involved. They volunteer on boards, whether a governing board or a foundation board. And it's interesting, you mentioned your family. You have a beautiful family. I was looking at the pictures of you with them, and I know you're very close to your brother. So I want to get in a little bit to the music. And I didn't know that about you initially. And when you and I were speaking, you shared with me a couple of clips of your music, and I was really inspired by the richness of it, the video, which I think for those who are watching the video version, you'll get a chance to see that. But it looked like the taping. It reminded me, it took me back in time, back when music videos were all the rage. But just how you recorded this, it looked like in the middle of like a farm field, and you can see houses off in the distance. But I would like to just share with our audience a little bit about the Miles Apart, your official music. And one of the lyrics that really struck with me is "When life is slipping away," and it was a hopeful kind of version. So let's listen to that a little bit, and then I'd like to hear your reaction. Tell us a little bit about your brother, how you did this, and maybe a little bit about what you try to do with your lyrics.
When life is slipping away like a breath, and hope is swaying as a leaf in the wind, pages of my life flash through my eyes, surrounded by the pain of broken ties. Rain, you got food.
Wow, this is definitely something that's very close to my heart. So you got to kind of stop me if I keep going. So in 2010, when I moved to the US from India, the one understanding that my brother and I had between the two of us is that we will do whatever it takes to keep our music alive. So for a few years before I moved to the US, my brother and I were involved with two bands. We used to constantly perform, record. It was a great time, and it was very disheartening to know that maybe we'll have to kind of say goodbye to that phase of our lives. And that's really how Miles Apart birthed. So I moved to the US in 2010, and it took about 5 years for my brother to move here as well. So we started the project in 2010, and now we have about 5 to 6 different tracks that are produced by Miles Apart. The idea was to work with different musicians, and many of them are our friends with whom we have performed back in the day. And if you look at the videos, some of them are shot in 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 different continents, and we try to put them all together. And with technology, it's become possible, but there are also a lot of challenges. I have to say that there is no greater joy than sitting together in a room with a bunch of musicians and creating music. But when that is not possible, then we have to rely on what we do these days. Sometimes we sit in the basement and record, but when it all comes together, it's such a joy. And to be able to know that we were able to put it out there and bless a few people, it gives us great pleasure. So that's really the story of Miles Apart. We've had the privilege of collaborating with a whole bunch of musicians from all around the world. Yeah, so that's really what's at the heart of Miles Apart. Yes, and my brother and I, we kind of co-founded this project, and we still continue to explore opportunities to record and release more tracks.
That's wonderful. And I'm hoping through this podcast platform, we have listeners in over 900 American cities, and we've reached so far about 59 countries around the world, that if people like this, they can tune into it, because I think the beat of the music is very inspirational, but I think the lyrics that you've written can really reach people. It goes back to what you were talking about, your purposeful focus on the things that you do. Another, and I noticed, I looked it up online, you have quite a diverse number of offerings, but there was one that was really sort of touched me, because I think, during the pandemic, many of us lost people that we care about, either to COVID or to natural life circumstances or something else. And just really honoring the people in our lives and knowing that life is a gift and we need to make the most of every day, pursue our dreams, share our gifts. So you produced something else with your brother called Treasure Without Measure. And I thought it was beautiful. So why don't you share with us a little bit about that after we take a quick listen to a piece of that.
Missed you by hours as you left this world of ours. Could miles been fewer to be home where you were? What were the words you tucked away to tell me that day in May? You are a treasure without a measure.
Becky, I'll also connect part of your previous question to this. Now, both the songs, the title track Miles Apart and Treasure Without a Measure, they kind of revolve around my dad a lot. My brother and I, we lost our dad in 2016, and he was a songwriter. And we always tell each other that the musical giftings that we have are likely from his wonderful genes. So we are very grateful to our dad. So when I wrote Miles Apart many years ago, it was really a rough patch for us as a family. Dad was battling cancer. We didn't know what the outcome is going to be. So that line that you mentioned, life is slipping away like a breath, I was really writing it from my dad's perspective. 2 years ago, we celebrated 5 years of his passing. And my brother and I figured that the best way to honor him might be to write a song. And this time around, it was interesting because, like you aptly pointed out, the two tracks are very diverse in their styles. And Miles Apart falls into a category what we call progressive rock. And that is what we are used to writing and performing. And when it came to writing a song to honor Dad, we had to think out of the box. And writing a ballad was not really easy. But I penned down the lyrics, and it's really the story of what happened. There are lines such as "missed you by hours." It literally was my circumstance. I kind of missed Dad by a few hours, and then I didn't get to hear the words that he wanted to tell me. So you will see that a lot of those pieces or lines in that song really reflect my experience during the time of Dad's passing. And we kind of call that Treasure Without a Measure. And that if you watch the video, you will see that it was shot at our home. My brother shot and produced the video. And we again had some wonderful friends collaborate on that project. And most of them, I want to say all of them, knew Dad very personally. So it kind of added a special flavor to the track.
Yeah, it's just what an honor. And I think about really the challenge of putting something like that together, because the quality of the video is terrific and the sound is wonderful as well. And I really hope people will check that out. And the other thing is, I think it's never too late to learn to play an instrument. Myself and a couple other colleagues are trying to dust off things that we did as a child. And, it does bring you back this sense of what you talked about in terms of joy, even in the midst of difficult circumstances or missing folks that are not with us anymore. Can do that. Now, another to pivot, because I'd love to talk about this music all day long, but I do want to get to your podcast as well. And you had decided to do that, and you have an interesting format. I love the title of it, Leader Reveal. And so maybe before we jump into the podcast, tell us a little bit about what you've learned about leadership, what you think is important as a leader, and then tell us a little bit about how you created this podcast to share out stories.
Wow, that's a wonderful segue, Becky. What I've got to tell you is that leadership, in my understanding, is a calling. It's not about you, it's about people. You've got to have a heart to serve. A lot of the times people confuse leadership with management. And these are two vastly different topics. And if you are really aspiring to be a leader, you've got to ask yourself, do I have the heart to serve people? Do I have what it takes to put people first and to cater to their needs? And oftentimes, I tell myself that some of the finest leadership nuggets are learned when you are in scenarios where there could have been better leadership. And then you take away such lessons and make sure that you don't make those same mistakes, but you are treating your people right. So that is really, in my opinion, what leadership is all about. It's all about people. It's all about the people you are responsible for, to serve them. Now, talking about leader reveal, I may have mentioned this to you earlier, but it really birthed in the shower. One day I was just thinking, what is it that I can do to kind of pay this forward? And I also had to kind of be aware of my limitations. And one of the greatest limitations now I have is time, because I have a day job, I have a family, my wife, my 2 kids. So there's a lot of time that goes into those aspects of my life. And then to be able to do something outside of that is really pushing the boundary. So I told myself that whatever I do has to be simple in terms of the time and in terms of technology. And I'm very grateful for this idea that came upon me, which is, hey, how about just reaching out to leaders who've been there, done that, and ask them to share in under 10 minutes some of the learnings that will likely inspire other leaders. And I remember speaking with a good friend, a mentor of mine at my previous company, who blessed this idea, and he was gracious enough to be the first guest on the podcast. This was back in October of 2021. And so far, we've done about 42 episodes, and there are sometimes random people messaging me and telling me, hey, thank you for putting this out. I just needed to hear that message. And that's really the mantra of Leader Reveal, to be able to put out messages that will inspire one heart at a time. And it's not always easy because you're not monetizing from the initiative. And of course, it requires effort, coordination. But what I've also told myself is it's been 42 lessons for me as well. And I look at it that way. And I've had the opportunity to speak with 42 people, spend time with them, and to understand what leadership is from their perspective. So that's Leader Reveal in a nutshell.
I think that's beautifully said. And one of our NACCE board members, Dr. Jim Murdaugh, who's president of Tallahassee Community College in Florida, speaks about the psychological paycheck. And I thought that really resonated with me. And if you're on a quest to bring more joy into the world and into others' lives, and what better a tool to do that? And so I really hope that people will, connect with your podcast, through their preferred platform and be inspired by that. I've been inspired just knowing you, and I have a feeling we just scratched the surface. Also, I would say anyone who's thinking about starting a podcast, you have to continue to show up, right? Even when you're tired and you might think, oh, I'll just take a week off. One of the things, and I just know enough to be dangerous in the podcasting world, but that you have to, keep putting things out there and be willing to show up, even sometimes if it's imperfect, which I imagine is what you all have done, even though your music looks beautiful and seamless to those of us who listen to it. There's lots of practicing, right? And there's lots of times where you have to do it over again. And that's how we get better as people. So I want to thank you so much for being here today. And I have a feeling we might be connecting on other projects in the future, but I'll just leave it to you to just leave our audience with maybe one last word or thought.
Becky, I want to first of all thank you for inviting me to be on this amazing podcast of yours. Just again, very, very grateful that you gave me an opportunity to speak about Miles Apart and Leader Reveal, 2 things that are very close to my heart. And I think the one thing I want to tell everyone is, if you have a dream, go after it. Don't hold yourself back because you're not able to monetize from it. Sometimes, it's okay to have a wonderful day job and also kind of pursue your passion on the side, because you never know whom you will touch, and you don't want to hold yourself back from being that blessing to someone who's out there. So go after your passion and make the world a better place.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you will continue to explore the many ways to define entrepreneurship with NACCE as we celebrate opportunity, failing forward, and success, learning from one another along the way. Subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and follow at NACCE on social media and learn more about us at nacce.com/podcast. Stay tuned for a new episode each week. We look forward to making our way forward together with you.